My scholar husband, who'd lived in my home for 5 years, finally passed the imperial exam. Now he can't stand his butcher wife, claiming I reek of raw meat. For half a month, he'd avoided sharing my bed, acting awkward and distant. I earned coins selling pork. I splurged on 2 sticks of ink, fine writing paper, and grudgingly bought a tiny bar of scented soap. I hurried home through pouring rain. A big yellow hound under the eaves was gnawing the pork dumplings I'd wrapped. Soft cooing drifted out from inside the house. "Father, the young lady smells so nice, not like mother. These pastries taste far better than pork dumplings, too." I tossed all the odds and ends I'd clutched against my chest right out the door, along with him and our son. When we signed the divorce papers, Zhang Huainian held our boy, glaring at me with resentment. Every villager snickered, saying I'd foolishly let a newly ranked official slip away. The next day, the matchmaker brought a pale, slender man with a stutter. A little girl trailed behind him. Father and daughter glanced at me timidly. I bluntly asked, "How often will you share my bed? How much meat will you eat off my table each day?" The stammering man flushed bright red. The matchmaker tugged his robe off one shoulder and he mumbled gently, "As long as my daughter gets enough to eat, I'll do anything to be your man." His robe hung half open. Pale, smooth skin glowed, with a faint warm blush. A quick glance revealed a slim, well-defined waist. My throat suddenly went dry. Zhang Huainian had started pulling away from our bed weeks before we signed those divorce papers. I was no stranger to intimacy. It had been far too long, and I ached for warmth. The matchmaker caught my longing look. She gave Song Baoyu a light shove toward me. I stumbled, losing my balance. Song Baoyu's hand landed firmly on my waist to steady me. I stared at his palm. It wasn't rough. Soft like a gentle maiden's, yet lined with faint blue veins, broad and warm. The matchmaker's eyes crinkled into slits from smiling. "Liunyang, you've seen him for yourself. Do you like this Song gentleman? Don't judge him just because he will move into your home with his daughter. I can tell at first glance, these two have pure hearts. He's quiet and steady, and his little girl is sweet and calm. They may not be wealthy, but they will treat you like their mistress. He'll never turn ungrateful and fickle like your last husband." The matchmaker had known my late parents. She spat fiercely on the ground. She stamped her feet, as if crushing bad luck. He had nothing once. His father died and rotted in their cottage for days before he sold himself to afford a burial. You slogged away selling pork, single-handedly supporting the whole family. Now he's a rank scholar and sneaks around with the magistrate's daughter. What a worthless wretch. Even if he rises to the top imperial rank, he's worse than the stray dog guarding my gate. Mark my words. She turned back to Song Baoyu. She tugged his sleeve and looked straight at me. "Liunyang, have you made up your mind about Song Baoyu?" Song Baoyu was far more handsome than Zheng Huainian. Honestly, I was drawn to his looks. Yet agreeing to meet a new suitor was partly out of spite. Yesterday, when we signed the divorce papers, Zheng Huainian's side was full of joy. Our son Zhengyu held sugar-candied haws. The mild, graceful magistrate's daughter stood beside him. Villagers crowded around, eager to watch and curry favor with a new scholar official. I stood all alone. My heart ached terribly. I still remembered when Zheng Huainian was penniless, desperate to bury his father. I handed him silver coins, and he followed me like a silent shadow. I told him my parents were gone. I gave him money only out of pity. I expected nothing in return. He wouldn't listen. A man moving into his wife's household was a live-in son-in-law, a title most men hated. He simply stared at me, stubborn enough to tug at my heartstrings. On the day of my parents' funeral, my greedy cousins fought to carry the mourning basin. They claimed since my parents had no sons, no brother for me, if I carried the basin, my parents would suffer in the afterlife. Zheng Huainian pushed the crowd aside and stood behind me. A flicker of warmth bloomed in my chest. I lifted the basin and smashed it straight into my troublesome cousin's face. After the funeral, rumors spread through the village. Everyone called Huang Lu a fierce shrew who would never remarry. Ibait no mint. I set up my pork stall in the market and gripped my bone cleaver tight. Wind or sun, I kept smiling. My parents once said all anyone needs is a home, someone to care for you. They feared I would be bullied marrying outside the family and hoped I would pick a live-in husband who would follow wherever I went. Once the marriage contract was sealed, I took it to my parents' grave to show them. Little Huang Lu finally had a family again. The sky had been unpredictable these days. Fine raindrops brushed my cheeks. I brushed water off my face, stunned by my own thoughts. How could Zheng Huainian, the stubborn man who once refused to leave my side, sign those divorce papers so easily? After years of marriage, didn't he understand all Huang Lu ever wanted was a home? The rain fell harder and harder. Seeing I stayed silent, the matchmaker's hopes faded. She sighed. The rain will only get worse. Master Song, you should take your daughter home now. Song Baoyu nodded. He lifted his little girl, covered her head carefully with his sleeve, ready to rush into the rain. Wait, the rain is too heavy. The child will catch a cold if you walk back now. I have an umbrella at home. Rain soaked the hair above Song Baoyu's forehead. He stared up at me, stunned. The little girl peeked out over his shoulder, her big dark eyes gazing at me nervously. Thank you, Mother. Song Baoyu's ears flushed scarlet. He quickly covered her mouth. The matchmaker grinned, her eyes darting back and forth between us. Song Baoyu spoke softly. I will return your umbrella once the rain stops, Lianyang. No rush. Bring it with you when you move in 2 days. Song Baoyu froze for a heartbeat, then brightened with joy. He bowed awkwardly to me. The matchmaker sighed and nudged him. Lianyang has chosen you. Hurry and call her your wife. Rain pattered loudly all around us. Then came his gentle, tender voice. Wife. After the father and daughter left, the matchmaker took her time and leaned in curiously. I saw you zoning out just now. Were you thinking about that worthless ex-husband of yours? You two shared years of marriage. Feelings are just like tangled thread in a sewing basket, messy and hard to untangle. It's only natural you still have lingering thoughts about him. How did you suddenly decide to give this new man a chance? Her words stung my heart. I replied casually. I just feel sorry for him and his little girl. I've been caught out in the pouring rain before. I know exactly how miserable it feels. After Zheng Huainian passed the imperial exam, he kept pulling away from me for half a month. Back in the day, he spent all his time buried in books chasing official status, leaving no room for us. Shortly after we wed, he had no self-control. He looked calm and refined as a scholar, yet he could never get enough of our nights together. My limbs would ache for an entire day afterward. Every time he coaxed me at night, I gave in to him without resistance. That was how Yor came along so quickly. I started to wonder if growing older had worn him out. I specially saved a pork kidney to stew for him, hoping it would restore his strength. I simmered it for a full hour. Darkness fell, yet Zheng Huainian never came home. He walked in clutching 2 scrolls of books. He only laid down beside me when I was nearly asleep. His voice turned cold. Don't touch those books. I mumbled a sleepy hum. Then I caught a whiff of sweet face powder on his inner robe. I leaned closer to his chest to sniff again. He shoved me away sharply, his brows drawn tight. I'm exhausted. He rolled over and turned his back to sleep. The back of my head slammed against the wall, sharp pain making me gasp. He did not bother to ask if I was hurt. Hey, Zheng Huainian, why are you acting this cold? What did I do to upset you? You've shut me out for so long. After a long silence, he answered flatly. The stench of raw meat on you is far too strong. The sky was clear when I closed my pork stall that day. I gripped the money pouch tight at my waist, heavy with coins. I shouted to sell meat all morning until my throat went hoarse. I headed to the bookshop and traded my butcher earnings for 2 ink sticks and fine writing paper. I wanted to cheer Zheng Huainian up. I passed a candy shop and bought a bag of pine nut candy. Yor had begged for sweets for ages. I barely had any money left. I hesitated a long while before I could afford a tiny bar of scented soap. Then rain started pouring down on my way home. Heavy wind lashed the rain everywhere. I tucked all my purchases inside my coat and covered them with my sleeves. I feared the rain would soak the paper and melt the candy. I knew they would sneer and say I was nothing but a smelly butcher woman. I hurried home through the storm. The big yellow hound under the eaves gnawed the pork dumplings I had made. Half the paper I carried turned damp. Anger bubbled up inside me. I wanted to scold the hound for stealing dumplings I'd woken up early to make for Yura's birthday. Yura loved these dumplings more than anything. He had tried dumplings sold by other vendors before. He would only take one bite and pout his lips. Mother's dumplings taste the best. A childish, coquettish voice drifted out of the house. Father, the young lady smells lovely, unlike Mother. These pastries taste much better than pork dumplings, too. Zheng Huainian did not correct the boy. He only warned him. Yura, don't say such things in front of your mother, understand? Yura obediently nodded. I know. Mother will yell at me and blame the young lady for giving me treats. She isn't pretty, she doesn't smell nice, and I'm tired of her dumplings. Mother is so fierce. I'm afraid she will hurt the young lady. I stood beneath the eaves. Cold rain soaked my back. All the items I held slipped and clattered onto the ground. The door, which had been slightly ajar, opened from inside. Zheng Huainian glanced at me once, his eyes shifting nervously with guilt. Yura still clutched half a pastry in his hand, his face drained of color from fright. Zheng Huainian cleared his throat. The rain is terrible. Why stand outside eavesdropping instead of coming in? As his mother, can't you overlook a child's casual words? You've scared Yura. Zheng Huainian stepped forward and reached for my hand. He flinched the second he touched my icy skin. I swatted his hand away and stared at Yura. Maybe he feared his butcher mother would strike him. Or maybe he realized how hurtful his words were. He cowered behind Magistrate Zhang's daughter, Jiang Rong, whimpering quietly. Jiang Rong knelt down and gently patted Yura's back with her slender pale hands. She spoke to me on Yura's behalf. Sister Liu, children speak without thinking. Yura only said those words to please me. I could never compare to his birth mother. Sister Liu, try speaking softly to you more often. He will grow closer to you. Come. Yura apologized to Sister Liu. Jiang Rong tugged Yura's small hand and walked toward me. I smelled the sweet fragrance of powder on her clothes. I lost my temper completely. Just like the fierce mother Yura described, I tossed all the things I'd bought out into the yard. I grabbed Zheng Huainian and pushed him out into the rain. I fixed a cold gaze on Yura and pointed at him. Get out too. Jiang Rong held a green oil paper umbrella, shielding the father and son gently from the rain. Zheng Huainian refused to reconcile with me. He wouldn't say a single word to comfort me. He held Yura tight, standing side by side with Miss Jiang under one umbrella. They walked further and further away through the pouring rain. Plenty of paths opened up for Zheng Huainian. The magistrate heard a story about being driven out by his shrewish wife. He generously offered Zheng Huainian a room and gave him a sack of silver, letting him focus fully on studying. Everyone fawned over Zheng Huainian at the academy. The strict teacher who normally snapped at students softened the moment he saw him. Another man followed behind the teacher, quiet and frustrated for a long time. Someone spoke to Zheng Huainian. Brother Zheng, don't pay attention to Song Baoyu. He seems knowledgeable, but he's just a stuttering fool. I heard he plans to remarry. He's asking the teacher for his wages now. Zheng Huainian knew who Song Baoyu was. Once, an essay written by Song Baoyu amazed their teacher so much he slammed the table in praise. Later, everyone found out a student had paid Song Baoyu to write it for him. Sadly, the teacher was petty and greedy. He used Song Baoyu's writings for almost no pay, earning great fame among local scholars. Song Baoyu was quiet and awkward, so he swallowed the unfair treatment. Zheng Huainian had suffered the same injustice once. Scholars valued pride and hated begging. When Zheng Huainian was penniless, the teacher refused to pay him for writing essays. He could not even afford to bury his dead father. Only Huang Lu marched to the teacher's house with her butcher's blade and raised a fuss. That was how he finally got the money he needed. Thoughts of Huang Lu filled Zheng Huainian with gloom. He was a ranked scholar now. He would never face such desperate poverty again. He walked calmly forward, surrounded by admirers, not sparing the teacher a kind look. He brushed past Song Baoyu. He heard the stuttering man argue with the teacher. My wife didn't send me to fight for this money. She is a kind woman, but I am moving into her home. I cannot arrive empty-handed. The surrounding scholars burst into laughter. No wonder you're penniless, yet still managed to find a wife. He's a live-in son-in-law. The laughter faded quickly as a thought hit them. The respected scholar Zheng standing before them was once a live-in son-in-law too. Zheng Huainian smiled faintly and kept walking forward. His fist clenched tight inside his sleeve. Even if two men both become live-in sons-in-law, their fates differ greatly. Song Baoyu would never meet a devoted wife like Huang Lu. Zheng Huainian's future stretched bright ahead. Once he headed to the capital and achieved top honors in the national exam, he would return and marry Huang Lu in grand style. No one would ever bring up his humiliating past as a live-in son-in-law again. We quarreled countless times, but Huang Lu loved him most. She would still be his wife. From far away, he heard another line drift over. My wife has chosen me. 2 days later, the sky cleared up. Song Baoyu came to move into my home as my live-in husband, bringing his little daughter along. The young girl Song Xiao held the umbrella, her hair tied with a lovely red ribbon. Song Baoyu carried a cloth bundle on his back. Father and daughter stepped through the front door together. I pointed to a wooden cabinet in the room and told Song Baoyu to put his belongings inside. He was never good with words. His neck flushed red with nervousness. He mumbled shyly, "These are for you, my wife." Curiosity stirred inside me. I watched him spread the bundle open across the table. A pair of red wedding candles carved with simple dragon and phoenix patterns laid there. A uniquely shaped golden hairpin. Several rolls of bright, popular fabric. Song Baoyu pulled a small pouch out of his sleeve and set it on the table too. Everything here belongs to you. I was just an ordinary woman. I untied the pouch first, and golden light dazzled my eyes. There was a solid gold ingot inside. I wasn't exactly joyful, mostly stunned. The matchmaker told me Song Baoyu had barely a coin to his name. She said he agreed to become a live-in son-in-law because he could not afford to raise his daughter alone. Where did he get all these valuables? My brows drew tight, my lips pressed firmly together. The father and daughter looked anxious, hanging their heads timidly. Song Baoyu, tell me honestly, where did you get this money? He answered truthfully, a jade pendant. I pawned it. I asked again, where did you get that jade pendant? My parents left it to me. I could not come to your home empty-handed. It was his family heirloom. How could he bear to part with it? Even Zheng Huainian knew to keep some silver for himself back then. All the money I fought to get for him stayed in his own hands. I once thought money did not matter between married couples. Now I saw clearly. Their hearts were never the same. I lifted the pouch to weigh it. It held quite a bit of weight. I tied it to my waist, enjoying the moment. Song Xiao stood quietly off to one side, grinning to herself. Her red ribbon bounced with every small movement. She looked just like a lucky little doll. Then her stomach rumbled loudly. She ducked her chin down, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. I still had 2 pounds of pork filling in the kitchen. I mixed some dough and started making pork dumplings. Song Baoyu fetched firewood and helped stoke the stove. Soon the water bubbled, warm steam rising onto our faces. I dropped plump dumplings into the boiling pot. Before long, the wrappers turned glossy and oil floated across the soup surface. Song Xiao squatted beside the stove, swallowing repeatedly. She stayed quiet and well-behaved, making no fuss. I fished one dumpling out into a bowl and handed it to the little girl. Try this. See if it's fully cooked. Song Xiao blew on it several times, then took a big bite in a hurry. Her eyes lit up instantly. She swallowed the whole thing in one gulp. Then she frowned, regretting rushing. I should have chewed it slower. After that, she glanced up at me carefully. Mother, my tummy is small. One dumpling fills me halfway. I froze. I guessed my angry words from that rainy day had stuck in her mind. I patted her forehead and stirred the floating dumplings in the pot with a ladle. We will share this whole pot between the three of us. If we cannot finish them, I will throw them away. You should eat a few more. Song Xiao tilted her head, twisting her fingers together. Really? Mother, you are amazing. You can buy so much meat. You are the greatest person I have ever met. I smiled faintly. Warm steam blurred my eyes. Being able to afford meat is nothing impressive. When you grow older, you might decide pastries taste better than pork dumplings. Song Xiao slowly shuffled over and grabbed the sleeve of my dress. Mother, if that day ever comes, it will mean I am not worthy of your dumplings. She was right. My dumplings always tasted the same. Anyone who thought pastries were better was the one who had changed. There was no reason for me to blame myself. Darkness fell. The pair of dragon and phoenix wedding candles flared to life. Wax dripped slowly down their sides. Brand new bedding waited on the bed. I leaned against the wall, resting my head on my arm. My mind spun with tangled thoughts. Even though I had signed the divorce papers, my years married to Zheng Huainian were real. I wondered if I was moving too fast. Wife. A corner of the quilt lifted, letting in a cold breeze. Soon after, a warm chest pressed gently against my back. He seemed to have no clothes on. Heat stirred restlessly inside me. All thoughts of Zheng Huainian faded away completely. I craved closeness, yet embarrassment lingered too. I stayed still. He pressed close against me, his warm breath falling on the nape of my neck. Quick and soft. The quiet man brushed light kisses along my skin. He wrapped his hand around mine from behind, holding it tight, letting out quiet, uneasy whimpers. Wife, I do not know how to do this. Show me once. My head felt foggy from the warmth. I asked without thinking. What about your last wife? Do what you did with her. There was no one before you. I have never had a wife. Impatience rushed over me. I turned around and huffed at him. You are helpless. He really had no clothes on. When I kissed him, he trembled wildly. Sad, watery eyes stared back at me. I had no choice. I became his teacher that night. By the end, his face burned bright red. Soon he took the lead, leaving me no chance to call him helpless ever again. I woke up the next morning to bright daylight. Song Baoyu brought my breakfast straight to the bedside. I finally got a full day to rest. I got clear answers to all the lingering questions from last night. Song Baoyu was swept here by a massive flood. He could not remember where his family came from. The only thing he kept was a jade pendant. He found Song Xiao as an infant beneath a tree by the river. They relied only on each other for the past year or two. Song Baoyu was quiet and reserved. He knew poetry well, but he understood nothing about farming or daily chores. The teacher owed him wages for more than half a year. Life grew harder and harder for them. Another man who could not get the money he was owed. My gaze darkened as I listened. I curled my fingers, tempted to knock some sense into his head. Yet when I looked at his strikingly handsome face, I held back. Lead the way. I'll get your money back. Song Baoyu smiled gently. I should not have been surprised. That teacher was still the same greedy, heartless man. When I burst into his house, his face turned pale the second he saw me. Hand over the money you owe my husband. He forced an awkward grin. I already paid what I owed Scholar Zheng. You must have the wrong person, Madam Liu. I dragged Song Baoyu forward. Quit stalling. This is his unpaid wages. How can you owe so many people money? You must carry silver falling out of your pockets. The teacher glanced at Song Baoyu, sneering and stroking his beard smugly. Then he spotted the butcher's blade slung over my back. He froze, not daring to act cocky anymore. He must have remembered how fierce I was when I fought for money years ago. Gritting his teeth, he fetched the silver from inside the house. As we left, the teacher spat hard onto the ground. Huang Lu, you never change. You wave that butcher's knife and act like a shrew. Everyone in town talks about your bad reputation. Look at Scholar Zheng. He left you anyway. Even your own son Zhengyu almost treats the magistrate's daughter like his birth mother. You pour your whole heart out for others. Tell me, what good has it brought you? My face turned cold. I was about to walk out. Song Baoyu suddenly stepped past me and charged inside. He grabbed the teacher by the neck and threw punch after punch. His expression was dark and unfeeling. Though his frame was slim, he beat the stocky teacher until he could not fight back. Apologize to my wife. The teacher groaned in agony. One eye swelled shut, making him look ridiculous. I burst out laughing and strode outside. Song Baoyu followed close behind me. Why are you so fierce all of a sudden? I crossed my arms and walked backward. He lowered his eyes, all that icy anger fading completely. I hated hearing those words. You treat me kindly. I cannot stand to see you hurt. I chuckled and nudged him with my elbow, shaking the money pouch in front of his face. Such sweet talk. Then I'm keeping all this silver for myself. I mean it. Blink if you feel bad. He paused, eyes curving softly as he smiled at me. Count to 10, wife. The money is yours, but I cannot hold my eyes open forever. They will grow sore. I shook the pouch while walking, counting quickly. 10, 2, 1. He lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. I huffed. I knew you wanted it. Wife, watch out for the tree ahead. Huh, there was no tree at all. This fool was teasing me on purpose. I gripped my blade, backed him up against the nearest tree, and kicked him several times. Stains marked his clean robe hem. He did not get upset. He just smiled foolishly. I'm glad to see you happy at last. My final kick hovered suspended in the air. My heart felt light and warm. Someone finally cared whether my days were bright or stormy. Song Baoyu told me he found new work copying paintings for an art studio. I muttered to myself. He could read and paint. Maybe he was a wealthy young master before the floods swept him away. I asked him a few questions, but sharp pain shot through the back of his head, and his face paled. I dropped the subject. While he went to the art studio, I visited a nearby shop. I picked out bright fabric and delicate hair flowers for a young girl. Afterward, I stopped by the candy shop and bought sesame candy. Ashio would love it. By the time I headed home, dusk had fallen. Smoke curled high from every family's chimney. Ashio had cooked a thin pot of rice soup. She was too frugal to add much rice. Song Baoyu's cooking skills were rough. He only knew how to stir-fry loofah with eggs. It was a simple plain meal, but it filled our bellies. After dinner, Song Shio stuck all the hair ornaments on her head. She flitted around like a little butterfly. Song Baoyu heated a bucket of hot water. I bathed in the side room. Suddenly, I heard soft rustling by the doorway. Ashio, what are you doing standing there? She stammered nervously. Mother, can I scrub your back? Come in. Night fell, and all birds and insects grew quiet. She tiptoed inside like a tiny kitten, clutching a bar of scented soap. I tossed the soap in anger that rainy day. After calming down, I retrieved it. Throwing it away would have wasted good money. Yet looking at it still stung my heart. This story is produced exclusively by the YouTube channel Moonlit Stories. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Huang Lu was a girl cherished by her parents. How did I end up being someone others found unpleasant? Since Ashio had come into my life, I might as well let her use it. Seeing the small soap bar in her hands, I felt a little awkward. Why do you carry this? She stood beside the wooden tub and spoke shyly. Mother gave this to me. It's my most precious thing. When I grow up, I will buy you finer dresses, hairpins, and scented balms. I will take good care of you, just like you care for me. Ashio was older than Zhengyu. In just these few days, she had grown extremely attached to me. I twisted my wet hair up and spoke to her. Those things do not cost much. They will be bought with your father's wages. I have not done anything extraordinary, but if you truly want to scrub my back, I would be happy to let you. Her small hands gently stirred the water, dampened a cloth, wrung it dry, and wiped my back. Mother lets Ashio eat full meals. You are kinder than the gods in the temple. My heart stirred softly. I relaxed and enjoyed the moment. I, Huang Lu, had finally learned to be smarter. I deserved to find happiness in this relationship too. Spring arrived the next year. Pear blossoms bloomed beautifully, and willow branches sprouted fresh green buds. Song Baoyu went to pick Song Xiao up from the girls' private school. The girl once begged to learn butchering and selling pork with me. I refused. Slaughtering meat, shouting for customers, covered in greasy smells, what good would that trade bring her? If she learned to read and write, she could become a female tutor someday. She earned first place in her latest school test. I specially saved a pork knuckle to cook for dinner. Two well-dressed strangers stood outside my front gate. "This is my home. What do you want?" The men glanced down at a portrait, then dropped to their knees, tears streaming down their faces. "Madam Huang, Your Highness, we have finally found you." Song Baoyu turned out to be the crown heir of Prince Jin. The jade pendant he pawned ended up in the capital city. That pawn shop belonged to Princess Jin's dowry. The shopkeeper recognized the pendant's owner. He tracked the trail all the way to my house. The two messengers spotted Song Baoyu coming home with his daughter. They wept and laughed with excitement. "My lord heir, Madam heir consort. Her Highness Princess Jin is gravely ill. Please hurry back to the capital with us. Her Highness hopes to see you and settle her last regret." Song Baoyu fell silent, his eyes filled with confusion. He pulled me into the inner room and whispered right by my ear, "Wife, Prince Jin and Princess Jin must be my birth parents." My chest tightens just thinking about her sickness. I want to go to the capital to see her. But I'm afraid they won't let me come back. Just like the tales I've read, they might tear our family apart. The thought of losing you and our daughter makes my chest ache even worse. I don't know what to do. I'll follow your choice. I glared at him sharply. Fine. Go enjoy your fancy life in the capital. You didn't even plan to take me and Axie along. You've grown bold. If you run off with them tonight, don't dare sleep in my bed." Song Baoyu struggled to get all those words out. Anxiety choked him up again. Tears pooled at the corners of his eyes. He bowed his head, held my hand, and drew slow circles on my palm. After a year living with him, I realized I'd grown soft for him. I loved watching him look wronged. He stammered and could never defend himself, delicate like pear blossoms beaten by rain. When I'd teased him enough, I cupped his face and soothed him. "I know you truly consider this place your home. Listen, go out and ask them this." Song Baoyu stepped outside and questioned the two stewards. "Does Princess Jin know I am married?" "We do, my lord. She knows everything. I am a live-in son-in-law. If I go to the capital, my wife and daughter must come with me." The two stewards agreed at once. "Of course. Ever since Her Highness learned you married, she ordered servants to prepare garments and gifts for Madame heir consort and the young lady." Spring scenery was perfect. I hung a clothes sign on my butcher stall. Our family of 3 set off for the capital. Prince Jin's mansion stretched across most of the street, grand and magnificent. Sweat dampened my palms. I already had a clear plan in mind. If the prince and princess only wanted their son and looked down on me, I would demand piles of gold, silver, and estates. Even if I lost my husband, I wouldn't leave empty-handed. I'd heard there were places for women to seek fun in the capital. If worst came to worst, I would take all the wealth and live freely among men. An elderly maid led us to the princess's bedroom. The lady rested against the bed frame. She had gentle features but pale skin. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw us. "What are you standing there for? Bring out the greeting gifts for the children." The man sitting beside the bed, stirring medicinal soup, nodded quickly. He fetched 2 boxes from the table. These are for your wife and daughter." After his blunt short speech, Prince Jin sat back down on his small wooden stool beside the bed. One glance told me Song Baoyu inherited his quiet, reserved nature. The princess chuckled. "Please sit. Liu Yang, I have a few questions to ask you. I heard you became a live-in son-in-law, and you supported the whole family selling pork." Song Baoyu often copied story scripts, so I'd heard countless tales of cruel mothers-in-law bullying poor daughters-in-law. My heart tightened, and I nodded. The princess let out a relieved sigh. What a blessing. I've finally entrusted Yor to someone reliable. I froze in shock. Someone has to take charge of this family. Yor is just like his father, too soft and gentle. When wealth comes, he only faces sneers and gossip. He won't starve. But when hardship hits, he will suffer terribly. Meeting you is the greatest fortune of Yor's life. I am frail. Later on, you will need to manage all affairs of the mansion. The princess grew tired and told us to rest. Stepping out of her quarters, I held the mansion steward's seal in one hand and the precious gifts in the other. Song Baoyu and Axiu followed behind me. So many gifts filled my heart completely. I could not fall asleep, so I sat on the corridor watching the moon. I felt no poetic sentiment. I only recalled the lullaby my parents sang to me as a child. Wife, I've washed myself clean. Why haven't you come to bed? I frowned. Aren't you embarrassed? This isn't the countryside. What if someone overhears you? He bent down and turned his back to me. I won't speak. Just smell me. I leaned against his neck and sniffed. A faint floral scent clung to his skin. He truly washed thoroughly. I glanced up at the full bright moon. If my parents were still alive, they would be overjoyed. Huang Lu finally found a foolish husband who would always follow close behind me. Students gathered to admire flowers at Baoan Temple after the exam results were posted. Zheng Huainian stood there with Zheng Yu. Other scholars chatted and admired blossoms, yet he looked gloomy. After arriving in the capital, Zheng Huainian realized there were always people better than him. Many scholars staying at the same inn surpassed him in talent and status. Magistrate Jiang once planned to wed his daughter Jiangrong to him. He even prepared travel funds for Zheng Huainian's imperial exam journey. When Zheng Huainian hesitated and refused to give a clear answer, the magistrate grew cold toward him. He only gave 20 taels of silver as a token when Zheng Huainian left for the capital. Zheng Huainian kept a calm face, yet he stored that humiliation deep in his heart. He once believed he would shine brilliantly in the capital, but reality disappointed him. His name appeared on the list, yet only in the 3rd tier. Living costs in the capital were steep. Zhang Yu craved meat-topped noodles at the inn, and Zheng Huainian hesitated a long time before buying one bowl. Zhang Yu was still hungry. He remained sensible, swallowed hard, and asked, "Father, when can we go home? I miss Mother's pork dumplings. They are big and tasty. To fill me right up." Thoughts of Huang Lu softened his expression. "We will head home in a few days. When we return, remember to comfort her. She cannot read and has a hot temper, but her heart is kind." Zheng Huainian chose to ignore the divorce papers he signed. He bought a fashionable hairpin popular among capital women and hid it in his robe. Fellow scholars teased him for being love-struck. "Brother Zheng, what are you daydreaming about? The temple's plain noodles are delicious. Come try some." Zheng Huainian agreed and pulled Jingyu forward. Then he ran straight into Song Baoyu, meeting an acquaintance far from home and someone he thought inferior to himself. Zheng Huainian paused, lowered his eyes, and sneered. He composed a gentle smile when facing Song Baoyu. "Brother Song, what brings you to the capital? You hold no official rank. You aren't here for the imperial exam. Could it be you followed your wife to make a living after becoming a live-in son-in-law? The capital is prosperous, yet hard to survive in. How have you been doing? Perhaps I can visit your residence someday. Will you need to discuss it with your wife first?" He realized he sounded aggressive. Still, venting his frustration over his failed exam lifted his mood. Song Baoyu stumbled over words, yet he was no fool. His expression stayed calm. "Excuse me." Zheng Huainian felt all his sharp words hit thin air. Anger stirred inside him at Song Baoyu's cold pride. Then a familiar female voice sounded from behind. "I asked you to get plain noodles. What took you so long?" The quiet, reserved man instantly broke into a grin and hurried forward. "I'm sorry, wife." Zheng Huainian stiffened and turned around. Zheng Yu reacted faster. He tugged his sleeve and shouted loudly, "Father, Mother came to the capital." I saw Zheng Huainian and Zheng Yu clearly. My gaze lingered briefly, then shifted back to Song Baoyu. I asked the abbot for 3 protective charms, one for each of us. This one is yours. Let's head home. Song Baoyu immediately laced his fingers through mine. You treat me so well, wife. Stop right there. Zheng Huainian rushed forward at once. He stared at my face, checking again and again. Then his eyes locked onto our intertwined fingers. Rage burned in his gaze. Huang Lu, how did you get to the capital? How do you know him? What is your relationship with him? Explain everything to me. Zheng Yu ran over too and shoved Axio hard. Axio lost her balance. Her elbow scraped against rough stones, leaving a large broken wound. My heart ached. I wiped dust off her arm with my sleeve and pulled her into my embrace. Axia shook her head and smiled at me. Mother, it does not hurt much. Do not worry. Zhang Yu stamped his feet angrily. Get away. She is my mother. Stop stealing my mother. You have no shame. I turned to leave with Axio in my arms. Song Baoyu stepped forward, his face dark as he shielded us. Zheng Huainian grabbed my wrist, squeezing tightly. His dark eyes bore into me coldly. Huang Lu, why does Song Baoyu call you his wife? And why does his daughter call you mother? Zheng Huainian looked intimidating, but he could never scare a butcher's wife like me. I easily pried the scholar's fingers loose and pushed him back gently. Can't you tell? I have a new live-in husband now. Zheng Huainian twisted his ankle. He staggered closer step by step. We shared 5 years of marriage and raised a son. You cast it all aside so easily. Huang Lu, how can you be so heartless? Every market vendor knows an old saying. Onlookers cheer casually. Only buyers will nitpick. Regular customers all knew I hated people who pick faults just to bargain for better meat. After 5 years together, Zheng Huainian never understood this part of me. If I still held my butcher's blade, I would drive him away once and for all. I shot back with a cold smile. Who treated me coldly? Who kept tangled up with the magistrate's daughter? And who freely signed the divorce papers? Zheng Huainian, you think you are clever, and everyone else is a fool. I see right through you. You hate the title of live-in son-in-law. You are far too proud. You hoped I would call you master once you achieved official success. You chose your bright path. I have my own road to cross. Zheng Huainian stared blankly and slowly lowered his eyes. Liunyang, you misunderstand me. I have always loved you. Ever since you gave me money to bury my father, I swore you would be my only wife. He bowed humbly and tried to reach for my hand, yet I pulled away. Misunderstandings or not, all of that is in the past. It no longer matters. There were happy moments in that marriage. The world is vast, and humans are tiny specks. When a family worries over coins and bickers over small things, you truly feel alive. But people's hearts shift easily. The man who once only wanted to repay my kindness grew ashamed of being a live-in son-in-law. The little boy who once loved my juicy pork dumplings grew old enough to wound his mother just to please powerful people. I live a rough life, yet I notice every detail. I once wanted to pretend ignorance and drift through days peacefully. I waited for Zheng Huainian to become an official and take me as his madam. I waited for Yor to grow mature and understand me. But on that rainy day, when I held his paper, ink and pine nut candy, I nearly lost myself. I suffered such bitterness, like swallowing raw coptis. I drove them out and found myself again. I gave paper and ink to my new husband. I kept pine nut candy in my pouch. During breaks selling meat, I crunched on them. My little girl uses scented soap to wash away the greasy smell on me. In the capital, my parents-in-law are gentle. I own piles of gold and silver. Home is no longer a place where I only endure grievances. I let all past entanglements fade away. Zheng Huainian's voice trembled uncontrollably. I did not wait for more heartfelt words from him. The weather turned fast. Light rain began to fall. The mountain path was gentle but slippery. Song Baoyu held our daughter and gripped an umbrella in his right hand. The 3 of us walked through the rain. Amid misty rain, tired birds flew back to the woods. Far behind us, Zhengyu cried unwillingly. That's my mother. Father, bring mother back. Zheng Huanyan covered the boy's mouth. He stared blankly at our fading figures. We lost her. We can never get her back. Somehow Zheng Huanyan found out the truth. He learned Song Baoyu was the recovered crown heir of Prince Jin and that I lived inside the royal mansion. Every time I stepped outside, I spotted him lingering at alley corners. He followed silently, just as stubborn as before. This time, my heart did not soften. Half a month passed. He came to speak to me for the first time. He tidied his clothes and appearance, yet he looked worn out and dejected. He told me he would take a magistrate post in a small southern county. I replied indifferently. Spring was coming to an end. Blossoms fell fast. Everyone had their own road ahead. Back at the mansion, the steward secretly gestured toward the garden. I walked toward the garden. The steward sent all servants away to leave us privacy. Beneath the pear blossom tree, Song Baoyu pressed his lips tight. Falling petals drifted down onto his hair. Lower your head. Let me brush these off. He did not resist. He bent down. I cupped his face. Why are you throwing a petty tantrum? Have I been too nice to you? Before Song Baoyu answered, his ears flushed red. He mumbled softly. Wife, you did not urge me for that. Were you with him? Have you already been satisfied outside? I truly do not mind. I know I am not good enough. I only cling to you. I am useless. You do not need to comfort me. I will feel better soon. I stood on tiptoes and kissed his rambling lips. Could he not see I had been busy learning to manage shops these days? As our kiss continued, all his unease melted away. He kissed me gently in return, pink spreading across his cheeks and neck. I pulled back to catch my breath, my head spinning lightly. I wondered what he had done. He carried a faint fruity wine scent, tempting me to lean closer and taste him. Fool, hold me. I comforted him for a very long time. I knew how endless and painful nights filled with suspicion and hurt could be.
What makes this story so touching is the subtle, stark difference between two loves. Zhang Huanyan took Huang Lu's unconditional devotion for granted, abandoned her humble warmth for fame and status, and only regretted his loss when it was too late. Meanwhile, Song Baoyu cherishes every little part of her. Her butcher's hands, her stubbornness, and all her grievances. He never looks down on her rough life, but chooses to stand by her side and heal her broken heart. True love is never about enjoying someone's kindness, but repaying it wholeheartedly. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Moonlit Stories. If you love heartfelt ancient romance tales, subscribe and stay tuned for more touching stories. See you next time.